I was 29, standing at my own wedding, and the loudest thing in the room was the silence from the empty row of chairs. My family's row. They hadn't come. Not my parents. Not my sister, Alina. Not even Matt, the best friend who was supposed to be my best man. They were all at Alina's engagement party, the one she scheduled on the same day I'd announced 8 months earlier. During the reception, just as Laya and I cut the cake, my phone lit up. "We need to talk now," Mom texted, and then it wouldn't stop. Call after call until the number hit 52. Laya leaned close. "Eli, what's wrong?" I forced a smile. "Nothing." Outside in the night air, I called Amelia, my cousin. She whispered like she was hiding. "They're saying you planned your wedding to compete with Alina. Your mom's telling people you did it on purpose. Dad's saying you're not close to the family. And Matt, he's here, saying you didn't even want him at your wedding. Also, Mom keeps calling because they need you to fix a catering issue for Alina tonight." I laughed once, short, bitter. They skipped my wedding and still wanted me to clean up theirs. Later in our hotel room, Amelia sent a photo. Alina stood glowing in her designer dress, and around her neck glittered my grandmother's wedding necklace, the one she'd promised me, written into her will. Mom had told me it was damaged. Then her voicemail played, cheerful at first, then sharp. I gave her the necklace so she could wear something meaningful. "Don't make this a big deal. It's just jewelry." I stared at the phone, chest cold, pulse steady. It wasn't just jewelry. It was proof. And the next morning, with the sunlight cutting across the hotel bed, I opened my grandmother's will. The morning light cut through the thin hotel curtains, spilling across the bed like it had no idea what kind of weight was pressing down on me. Laya's breathing was soft beside me, her hand curled loosely around mine, but I couldn't stay in that bed. I slipped out, sat at the desk with my laptop, and opened a folder I hadn't touched in years. There it was, my grandmother's will. The scanned copy stared back at me, the words steady and final. "I leave my wedding necklace to my grandson, Elias Harper, to be given to his bride on the day of their wedding. My name, printed in black and white, undeniable. No room for interpretation, no room for the lie my mother had told me." I sat still, the hum of the air conditioner louder than it should have been. My mother's voice echoed in my head. "It's not in good condition anymore. Best not to use it." Then the image of Alina's smiling face with that necklace glittering against her skin. My grandmother had pulled me aside when I was 19, pressed that velvet box into my hands, and told me it was mine for my bride. Now it hung around Alina's neck as if my grandmother's words meant nothing. The ache in my chest didn't come as a sudden stab. It was heavier, slower, like lead poured into me. Laya stirred awake. She rubbed her eyes, saw the screen, and frowned. "Eli, what are you doing up?" I turned the laptop so she could read it. She lied. It was written for me, and she knew. Her gaze swept over the words, then landed back on my face. Her voice was gentle but certain. "Then now you have proof." Proof. Proof of what? That I'd always been second place? That my parents' loyalty was to my sister no matter what? I didn't need documents for that. The evidence had already been written in the empty row of chairs at my wedding. We tried to act normal. We went downstairs to a little cafe by the water. The smell of fresh bread, clinking mugs, strangers laughing over pancakes. Life moved on around us like nothing had happened. But every sound felt muffled, like I was behind glass. Laya spoke about honeymoon plans, about an art show she wanted us to visit, her eyes darting to me when she thought I wasn't looking. I forced smiles, nodded in the right places, but inside I was hollow. Back in the hotel room, I unzipped my bag and found the velvet box at the bottom. Empty now. I had brought it to surprise her, but it mocked me instead, a symbol of how little my family valued me. I held it in my palm, and for a second it felt weightless, and that weightlessness cut deeper than if it had been heavy. I thought I might cry. I didn't. My chest was too cold for tears. Then the phone buzzed. 93 missed calls, 22 voicemails, dozens of texts. None said congratulations. None said we're sorry we couldn't be there. Just orders. Call your sister. Do the right thing. I pressed play on one voicemail. My father's voice, sharp and annoyed. "Elias, ignoring your family on a night like this is childish. We were hoping you'd be more mature now that you're married. Call your mother back and do the right thing." The right thing. As if leaving me alone on the most important day of my life had been the right thing. Laia sat across from me later that day at the kitchen table of our apartment. She reached for my hand, her fingers warm. "Eli, you don't have to carry this. They made their choice." But I did carry it. Or maybe it carried me. Every memory surfaced like it was happening again. My mom's long pause on the phone 2 weeks before the wedding, my dad's silence when I told him the date, Matt's voice cracking with fake guilt when he said he couldn't be my best man, and over all of it, the image of that empty row of chairs. I clenched my fists under the table until my nails dug into my palms. I didn't bleed, I didn't yell, I just held the silence until it felt like it was pressing on my lungs. That night, while Laia slept, I sat at the desk with my laptop open. To anyone passing by, it would have looked like I was browsing honeymoon destinations. In reality, I was dragging files into a folder I named simply for later. Screenshots of every text from my parents. Photos Amelia had sent from the engagement party. Voicemails dripping with manipulation. The photo of Alina in the necklace. The copy of my grandmother's will. One by one, I saved them. I told myself it was for my own sanity, but I knew better. It was the first time I wasn't just swallowing the pain. I was keeping record. Days passed. We returned home from the short honeymoon, unpacked the suitcases, hung up new clothes in the closet. Laia filled the house with soft music, laughter, the smell of fresh coffee. Outwardly, we were a young married couple settling into life. Inside, every buzz of my phone hardened me. The messages didn't stop. Relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years were suddenly demanding I call my sister. My mother's voice played again in my head. "Don't make this a big deal. It's just a piece of jewelry." My father's voicemail repeating, "Be more mature. Do the right thing." I lay awake one night, the glow from the streetlight spilling over the dresser. The empty velvet box sat there, shadowed but visible, like it was watching me. My chest rose and fell, but I didn't feel calm. I whispered into the dark, barely audible even to myself. "They'll never do this to me again." I didn't know yet what that meant, but I knew the old cycle was broken. Hurt, excuse, forgive. The ice inside me wasn't melting. It was forming into something sharper. And as I slid the printed copy of my grandmother's will into an envelope and tucked it away, I realized I wasn't just grieving anymore. I was preparing. I slid the envelope into the bottom drawer of my desk and closed it softly, the sound almost swallowed by the quiet of our apartment. It was just a thin stack of paper, but it felt heavier than anything I'd carried before. For the first time, I wasn't letting the hurt slip away. I was keeping it close, cataloged, waiting. On the outside, life moved forward. At work, I showed up early, stayed late, volunteered for projects no one wanted. People assumed I was ambitious, hungry. Maybe I was. But under the surface, the truth was simpler. I needed something to pour myself into, so I wouldn't collapse under what my family had done. Every late night at the office dulled the echo of my father's voicemail. Every new task muffled the memory of my mother's voice calling the necklace just jewelry. 3 months later, I landed a major client, the kind that could make or break a department. The pitch had my fingerprints all over it, sharp, calculated, relentless. When we closed the deal, revenue spiked nearly 40%. The CEO shook my hand in front of the whole company, smiling like he'd discovered a new star. A week later, my title changed to director. The promotion came with money, influence, doors opening where they'd been closed. I funneled it into investments, real estate, places where numbers stacked quietly into something solid. Every check I deposited, every property deed I signed felt like another brick in a wall I was building between myself and the people who thought I was disposable. At home, Laia and I carved out a life that felt untouched by them. We bought a house on the edge of the city, sunlight spilling through big windows, the river gleaming outside my new office. Friends came over for dinners, for weekends away. Laya's art connections opened circles I never would have touched before. Our living room filled with voices that saw me not as Alina's shadow, but as my own person. Still, the folder grew. Every time Amelia slipped me a text or photo from inside the family, I saved it. She was careful, always whispering when she called, always checking no one was listening. "They keep telling people you don't care about family," she murmured once. I could hear her pacing. "Dad says you've distanced yourself, like that's why they didn't come to your wedding." I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. Silence was sharper than any words I could have thrown back. Another time she told me, "Matt shows up at dinners acting like nothing happened." Her voice caught, heavy with disgust, like he didn't stand there at Alina's party lying about you. I listened, jaw tight, and typed notes into a document, each line another thread in a net I was weaving. Almost a year after the wedding, an email landed in my inbox. A national business magazine wanted to feature me in a piece on young professionals who'd built financial independence before 35. They sent a photographer, asked me about strategy, risk, discipline. When the issue hit stands, my face stared back from glossy pages. Amelia texted a photo of my mom holding 3 copies. "She doesn't know what to say," Amelia wrote, "but she keeps them hidden under a stack of cookbooks." I didn't call, I didn't ask. The silence was mine to keep. The ache inside me wasn't gone, but it had hardened. I was no longer the son begging them to choose me. I was the man building a life they couldn't touch. Then one rainy Tuesday, 18 months after my wedding, Amelia's email appeared. "Thought you'd want to see this." Attached was a PDF, high-resolution scans of my grandmother's estate inventory. There, in neat type, was the necklace. And next to it, my name, clear, unmistakable. But what froze me was the handwritten note at the bottom, signed by my mother, released to Alina Harper for temporary use, June 15th, to be returned to rightful owner. Temporary use. June 15th, the night of Alina's engagement party. My mother had put it in writing that the necklace was mine, and nearly 2 years later, it was still missing. I leaned back, staring at the screen, heart pounding. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was legally binding proof. That same week, fate slipped me another card. Over coffee with a high-profile event planner I'd met through work, she laughed about her latest client. "The bride's name is Alina Harper," she said, rolling her eyes. "Most demanding woman I've ever worked with. Wants perfection for every detail." I kept my expression calm, but inside, the air shifted. Alina's wedding was 6 months away. It would be big, expensive, public. Everyone my parents wanted to impress would be there. I nodded casually. "Sounds like a challenge." She groaned. "You don't know the half of it. Exclusive venue, international guests, endless drama." She sipped her latte, oblivious to what her words meant to me. That night, I sat in my office, the rain streaking the windows, the city lights blurred beyond the glass. On my desk lay 2 things: Amelia's document with my mother's signature and my grandmother's will, folded in the envelope marked for later. The ache in my chest had been there so long it felt permanent, but now it pulsed differently, less like pain, more like resolve. I wasn't going to scream at them. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to wait, prepare, and when the time came, move in silence. So I hired Vincent, a calm, polished attorney who didn't flinch when I laid everything on the table. He read the documents, nodded slowly, and said, "You have a strong case, very strong, but timing will matter." Timing, the word settled in my bones. I didn't file anything right away. Instead, I kept building. Connections, influence, reputation, networking events, charity dinners, business meetings. I shook hands with the same people my parents worshipped from afar. I befriended journalists who wrote glowing society pieces. Even the estate owner where Alina's wedding would take place learned my name, not as her brother, but as a respected businessman. By the time spring came, I wasn't just healed, I was armed. Then Amelia called one night, voice low like always. "Mom's been bragging that she's keeping the necklace safe for Alina's wedding day. Says you don't care about traditions anymore, so it's better off with her." I thanked her, hung up, and sat in silence, staring at the envelope in my drawer. For the first time, the ache inside me flickered, fading just a little, replaced by something steadier. They thought they'd written me out. They thought I was gone, forgotten, replaceable. But I had the will. I had the signed release. I had the proof. And soon, I would have the moment. The envelope sat in my drawer like a heartbeat I couldn't quiet. My grandmother's will, my mother's signature, the proof stacked in order. I looked at it every night, not because I doubted it, but because I needed to remind myself I wasn't crazy. 6 months stretched thin and tense, each day a quiet step toward the storm. By the time Alina's wedding week arrived, the city buzzed with her name. Articles in society pages about the venue, about the imported flowers, about her dress fittings. Every detail screamed perfection, curated to cement her place as the family's shining star. And I wasn't invited. Of course I wasn't. But I didn't need an invitation. I had something better. Vincent. He'd crafted the letter with surgical precision. Demand for the immediate return of the necklace, citations from the will, a warning about liability for any venue that allowed stolen property on display. We scheduled the delivery for 3:15 p.m. sharp, right as the photographers would be setting up. The morning of her wedding, I woke early. Sunlight streamed through my office window, hitting the velvet box on my desk, empty still but waiting. Laia came in, hair loose, holding a mug of coffee. She set it beside me. "You're really going to do this today?" I nodded. "It's the only way." Her eyes searched mine. Not fear, not doubt, just a quiet sadness. "Then do it clean. No yelling, no mess. Just truth. Truth. That's all I'd ever wanted." At 3:17, my phone buzzed. Vincent's voice was calm, almost amused. "It's done." She didn't take it well. Almost immediately, Amelia's texts started pouring in. She's screaming at Mom. Matt's trying to calm her down. She threw a hairbrush. "They're taking the necklace off right now." The photographer packed up the jewelry shots. She's in tears. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling for what felt like the first time in 2 years. But the quiet victory didn't last long. By 6 that evening, whispers were already online. Grainy photos of a bride without her signature heirloom. Captions about last-minute changes. At first it was small, almost satisfying. But by the next morning, the storm hit back. The lifestyle journalist I'd tipped off published her piece. The missing heirloom, the quiet drama behind yesterday's lavish Harper wedding. She laid out the facts, quoted the will, ended with, "The necklace is now back in the rightful possession of the grandson it was intended for." It should have felt like justice. Instead, my phone exploded. Calls, emails, even my office line rang non-stop. My parents left voicemails laced with fury. My father's voice thundered, "Do you realize what you've done? You humiliated this family in front of everyone." My mother sobbed into hers. "Why couldn't you just let Alina have her day? Why did you need to ruin it?" Their words pressed down heavier than I expected. For years I'd dreamed of proof, of a moment where their lies collapsed. And now that I had it, all I felt was exhaustion. At work, whispers floated through hallways. A couple of colleagues congratulated me quietly, saying they'd read the article, that it was good to see justice done. But others looked at me differently, like I was dangerous. Someone willing to air family drama in public. That night, Amelia called, her voice low. "They're falling apart, Eli. Mom blames Dad, Dad blames Mom. Alina's furious. Her in-laws are threatening to pull out of some business deal. They're saying you've destroyed them." I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. "I didn't destroy them, Amelia." They did, but the weight didn't lift. Over the next week, local outlets picked up the story. It spread through the same social circles my parents worshipped. Invitations dried up. Business partners pulled away. Friends stopped answering their calls. I thought it would feel like vindication. Instead, it felt like standing in the middle of a wreck I hadn't fully intended. And then came Matt. He showed up at my office lobby one afternoon, tie loosened, eyes darting like he wasn't sure if he should be there. "Eli, can we talk?" I stared at him through the glass doors, memories flashing. The night before my wedding when he said, "Sorry, man, can't miss Alina's party." His voice at the engagement party telling strangers I'd been difficult. His grin in the photo next to Alina wearing the necklace. I didn't move. He pressed a hand to the glass. "They're saying you lied, Eli, that you made this all up." My chest went cold. "I have the will. I have Mom's signature." He swallowed hard. "They're telling everyone you forged it." For a moment, the floor tilted under me. Forged it. They were already rewriting the story, already turning me into the villain again. That night, I sat with Vincent in his office, papers spread across the desk. He shook his head. "They don't have a case. The documents are airtight. But if they go public with this claim, it could drag on. People love scandal more than truth." I rubbed my temples, the ache in my head sharp. "So what do I do? Keep fighting until they're satisfied I'm the villain?" Vincent leaned back. "Sometimes silence is the strongest answer. You've already won legally. Let them burn themselves out." But silence was heavy. Silence left space for them to twist the truth again. At home, Laya watched me pace the living room, the city lights flickering against the glass. "Eli, you don't owe them your peace. They took enough already. Don't let them take more." I wanted to believe her, but the old ache was back, sharper now. Because for the first time since my wedding, it felt like I might lose. Not the necklace. That was safe in the velvet box on my desk. But the narrative. The one thing I thought I'd finally reclaimed. Days turned into weeks, and the storm didn't quiet. My parents whispered into every ear they could reach, hinting that I'd fabricated everything. Alina posted old photos of herself in the necklace from her engagement party, captioned with vague quotes about family and love. Comments piled up, half believing her, half demanding answers. The ache twisted into doubt. Was my silence making me look guilty? One night, Amelia called, voice urgent. "Eli, they're planning something. Mom's talking about holding a press interview saying you've been unstable, that you forged everything to get back at them." I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, the room spinning. "They'd really do that?" "You know them," she whispered. "They'll do anything to protect the image." I hung up and stared at the velvet box. The necklace glinted faintly in the dim light, catching the glow from the street lamp outside. It was mine, my grandmother's promise, my proof. And yet, if they painted me as unstable, if they made the world believe I'd forged everything, all of it could collapse. I clenched my fists, breath coming sharp. For years, I'd let them control the story. For once, I thought I'd taken it back. Now it was slipping again, twisted in their hands. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the desk, papers spread out, the will, the release, Amelia's scans. My fingers tapped against the wood, restless. If they wanted a war, they were about to get one. The night I couldn't sleep, I stared at the necklace gleaming faintly inside its velvet box. For 2 years, I'd lived with the weight of silence, with the ache of letting them spin the story. But if they wanted a war, if they wanted to smear me as unstable, a liar, a forger, then I wasn't going to sit back this time. By morning, my decision was clear. I met Vincent in his office, papers stacked high between us. He studied my face for a long moment. "So you're ready." I nodded. "They're threatening a press interview. If they go first, I'll lose the narrative again." Vincent slid the documents toward me. "Then we go on record before they do. We file for wrongful withholding of inherited property and attach every piece of evidence. Your grandmother's will, your mother's signed release, the photos. It won't just hold in court. It will hold in public." My chest tightened, but not from fear, from certainty. Do it. Within 48 hours, the suit was filed, and within 72, the story hit the news cycle. Headlines weren't subtle. "Grandson sues family over stolen heirloom." Articles quoted directly from the will, published side by side with images Amelia had given me of Alina wearing the necklace. The backlash was immediate. My parents called nonstop, their voices hoarse on the voicemails. "How dare you drag this into the courts?" My mother cried. "Do you want to destroy your sister's life?" My father's tone was harsher. "You're embarrassing yourself. Drop it before it goes too far." But it was already too far. The first court date arrived on a gray Tuesday morning. I walked into the courthouse with Vincent by my side, the smell of polished floors and old wood heavy in the air. Cameras flashed outside, reporters shouting questions. Elias squeezed my hand once before we entered, her eyes steady. Inside, I saw them. My parents, sitting stiff on the opposite bench. Alina beside them, eyes red-rimmed, lips pressed tight. Matt sat in the back, trying not to be noticed, but I saw him. When the judge asked for opening remarks, Vincent's voice was calm and firm. "This is a simple matter of honoring a will. The necklace was left to my client, Mr. Elias Harper, to be given to his bride on his wedding day. The defendant acknowledged this in writing, yet withheld the necklace for nearly 2 years, allowing another party to wear it publicly. We are asking for the rightful property to be returned." My mother's attorney tried to twist it, claimed the release was informal, claimed I had misunderstood my grandmother's intentions, claimed I'd gone after them out of spite. I sat there listening, my jaw tight, until the judge asked to see the documents. Vincent handed them over. The judge's eyes scanned the page, lingering on my mother's signature. The silence stretched. My mother shifted in her seat, her hands twisting in her lap. In that moment, I saw it, the crack in their confidence. After court adjourned, reporters swarmed outside. One shoved a mic in my face. "Elias, are you doing this to punish your family?" I met their eyes and spoke the truth. "I'm doing this because my grandmother's last wish mattered. I won't let anyone erase it." The clip aired that night, and to my surprise, support flooded in. Messages from strangers, from coworkers, even from people who had once been close to my parents. "Good for you. Justice matters." But with support came more venom. My parents doubled down, calling me ungrateful, heartless, obsessed. Alina posted a photo of herself crying, captioned, "When family turns against family, everyone loses." The comment section split in two, half pitying her, half reminding her she wore something that wasn't hers. The pressure mounted, but I stayed silent publicly after that first statement. Silence let the document speak louder than I ever could. Weeks turned into months as the case wound forward. Each hearing chipped away at their defense. Each filing tightened the noose of truth around the lies. Then came the confrontation I didn't expect. One night, as I left the office late, I found Matt waiting by my car. Rain slicked the pavement, streetlights casting sharp reflections. He stepped forward, shoulders hunched. "Eli," he started, voice raw, "I need you to hear me." I froze, keys in hand. "Why are you here?" I screwed up. His hands trembled. "That night, your wedding night, I told them what they wanted to hear, that you were difficult, that you didn't want me there. I was drunk and they were pressuring me and—" My chest tightened with fury. "You let them use you. You let them lie about me." "I know." His eyes glistened. "I thought I was protecting myself, but I see it now. I was wrong. I'm sorry." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to rewind to the years when we'd been brothers in everything. But the image of him standing beside Alina at her party, smiling while I cut my wedding cake alone, burned too deep. "Sorry doesn't fix it," I said finally. He stepped back, nodding slowly, rain dripping down his face. "I'll testify if you need me, about what they said, about what really happened." I didn't answer. I just got in the car and drove off, the ache sharper than ever. By the time the final hearing arrived, the courtroom was packed. The media smelled blood. My parents looked gaunt, Alina pale. Vincent laid out the case with methodical precision, and when he handed the judge the velvet box, my grandmother's necklace resting inside, the silence in the room was heavy. The judge's words were measured but firm. The court recognizes the necklace as the rightful property of Mr. Elias Harper, in accordance with the will of his late grandmother. Furthermore, The prolonged withholding of this property raises serious concerns. Restitution is granted. It was over. But as I walked out of the courthouse, cameras flashing, questions flying, the victory didn't feel clean. I'd won on paper, yes. The necklace was mine. But the family I'd once begged to see me, to choose me, now looked at me with hatred so sharp it could cut through bone. That night, Laya and I sat in our living room, the necklace on the table between us. The diamonds caught the lamplight, beautiful and cold. "You did it," she whispered. I nodded, but at what cost? Because even in winning, I'd lost something permanent. The last fragile thread that tied me to them had snapped, and there was no going back. I picked up the necklace, the weight of it solid in my hand. My grandmother's voice echoed faintly in my memory. "Don't let anyone else tell you different." For the first time in years, I felt the truth settle fully in me. I hadn't just reclaimed the necklace, I'd reclaimed myself. But as I set it back in the box, my phone buzzed again. A message from Amelia. "You should know. They're planning something bigger, a statement, public, against you." I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. The battle in court was done, but the war in public, the war for the story, was just beginning. When Amelia's warning came through, they're planning something bigger, a statement, public, against you. I sat in the dim glow of the living room, the necklace lying in its velvet box on the coffee table. Laya was beside me, quiet, her hand folded over mine. For a while I just stared at the box, the gold catching faint light, and thought about how far I'd come since that night of empty chairs at my wedding. My parents had chosen my sister. Matt had chosen my sister. Even after the court ruling, even after the truth was written in black and white, they still wanted to twist the story. But something shifted in me then. I finally understood what had taken me years to see. They weren't going to stop. They couldn't. Their whole lives were built on appearances, and I had ruined the picture. The only way to win wasn't to fight every word they spoke. It was to stop letting them write me into their story at all. So when the statement hit the press, full of half-truths and pity for Alina, I didn't respond. I let the silence hold. At first, the calls and messages kept coming, reporters hungry for sound bites, strangers online demanding answers. But when none came, the noise faded. People moved on, and without me to push against, my parents' words fell flat like rehearsed lines in an empty theater. The following months passed with a strange calm. The necklace stayed in my possession, not as a trophy, but as a promise. I kept it locked away until the night of our first anniversary. Laya stood in front of the mirror in our bedroom, soft lamplight catching her dress. I clasped the necklace around her neck, and for a long moment neither of us spoke. Then she turned, her smile steady. "Feels like it's home now, doesn't it?" I nodded, and I thought of my grandmother's voice years ago. "Don't let anyone else tell you different." We went out to dinner, just the two of us, in a quiet corner of the city. For the first time since my wedding day, I didn't feel the dull ache of absence. I felt peace. I realized then that the necklace had never really been about the jewelry. It was about dignity, about honoring promises, about not letting the people closest to me erase who I was. And maybe that's what healing really looks like. Not revenge, not public victory, but finally choosing peace for yourself. I don't hate my parents. Hate would mean I still gave them space inside me. What I feel is quieter, like closing a door softly and throwing away the key. Family, I've learned, isn't always blood. It's who shows up. It's who chooses you. And that night, looking at Laya across the table, I knew I had all the family I needed. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers in the way you live your life afterward. I built a career, a home, friendships, a marriage that feels steady and real. My parents can keep spinning whatever story they need to survive. The people who matter know the truth, and so do I. If you've ever carried that same weight, being overlooked, lied about, made to feel like you don't matter, I want you to hear this. You do matter. You don't need their blessing to be whole. You don't need their approval to live a life worth living. The bravest choice you can make is to step out of the shadow of their story and claim your own. I still keep the folder on my laptop, not because I need the proof anymore, but because it reminds me of the night I stopped being their scapegoat and started being myself. The necklace stays where it belongs, not as a weapon in a family feud, but as a symbol of love and dignity that my grandmother wanted for me. And me, I've learned to rest lighter. The ache is gone. The silence is mine. So if you've ever lived through betrayal, if you've been cut out of the story your family tries to write, let this be a reminder. Your truth matters. Build your peace. Build your life. And when the moment comes, choose love over bitterness. Because no matter how loudly they rewrite the past, the real story, the one that carries dignity, healing, and strength, belongs to you. And if you're reading this and it feels like I've spoken part of your story, then don't let it stop here. Share your voice. Someone else needs to hear it, just like you needed to. And if you want to walk alongside more stories of courage and survival, stay with us here on Family Power Stories. We tell the truths that can't be erased.